Hello, friends, and welcome to another installment of Go Tell It on the Mountain. As you heard at the end of last year, our Go Tell It on the Mountain series is going to move more towards a Find Hope Now series because so many of our churches are engaged in the deliberative work of bringing about hope in a world that can sometimes seem hopeless. So today I get an opportunity to spend some time with Pastor Shelley and Pastor RG, who are going to share with us some of the ways in which their congregations who are coming together might be another model of hope. Good morning, friends. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. We always started the Go Tell It on the Mountain series with a simple question of your call stories. So, Shelley, I'm going to begin with you. If you could share a little snippet about your own call to ministry and then the call to your current congregation.
Okay, well, as so is true with so many call stories, it's not simple,
Right.
but I'll do my best to make it tight. And that is that 8-year-old Shelley felt a call to ministry when she was in her local church, United Methodist at the time, and kind of carried that call close. Family didn't necessarily understand it, but it did follow me all the way to college, meeting my first female pastor, chaplain in college, to seminary, and then roadblocks flew up all over the place because my sexual orientation didn't match the United Methodist Church's idea of what a pastor looks like. So, I talk about my exile years. Those were long and lots of wilderness. But talk about finding hope now. I found the United Church of Christ. My spouse and I got together in a UCC congregation in Minneapolis. And I started to tentatively explore the possibility again of what it might look like to meet back up with my call. And it all finally came together when I was ordained when I was 48 years old. So it took a while, but God did not fail. And I was ordained in 2008, served a congregation in Greater Philadelphia, and then took a call to come to what was then East Congregational Church in Milton, Massachusetts in 2014. So I've been up in the Southern New England Conference for about little over 10 years now. And I have been on quite a journey with what was East Congregational Church. As part of our journey together was discerning how best to faithfully steward our assets into the future. And one of the multiple scenarios that we considered was the possibility of consolidating with one or more other congregations. As we discerned that our own capacities, mostly having to do with people and energy, weren't great enough to carry ourselves forward on our own, or on our own as a congregation. We knew God was carrying us, but consolidation was what the congregation chose, and then we sought a partner. And so my call shifted dramatically in ways I did not anticipate, but I and we have found great hope in coming together, becoming better together with our neighbors and friends and followers of Jesus in the former First Congregational Church of Milton. So it's been quite a ride, I like to say. And again, as the John Bell song says, will you come and follow me if I but call your name? Will you go where you don't know and never be the same?
Amen. Shelley, as you were using the word consolidation, another kind of more secular word I've been thinking about is crowdsourcing. For new initiatives, now people crowdsource. What can you bring? What can you bring? What can you bring? And somehow together, this new idea can burgeon. Such an invitation to our churches to understand how they might crowdsource with each other. Like how we might say, we actually are part of the same conference, the same association, the same framework. What might we crowdsource to fund or build together? So thank you for that. RG, I know a little bit about yours, so I got a chance to hang out with you. Thanks for bringing some Southern flair up here. Let's talk about
you were telling me about your civil rights pilgrimage to Alabama. I hope you had time to get some good Southern food while you were there also.
Too much.
Yeah. No, so on one hand, my call story is pretty straightforward. I occupy pretty much every single level of privilege that exists in society, and so I didn't have the same roadblocks that Shelley did placed in front of me. And so my path was, college, religion major, right out of college, seminary, right out of seminary, started serving a church. And on one level, kind of my experience in my call was in some ways straightforward. I remember being 4 years old, and my family that I grew up in was always in church. And I would sit my parents down in the living room and take a piece of like white loaf bread and a glass of grape juice and serve them communion. So at least something was percolating even when I was 4 years old. And then I kind of had a pretty profound experience feeling that I might be called at a youth retreat when I was a senior in high school. And then in college, I really became exposed to being from Alabama, the history of the civil rights movement. I read everything that Dr. King wrote. I went to college in Birmingham and got involved in some work in some low-income communities, and really felt that my call was turned towards how can I help the church respond in meaningful and helpful ways to those who are marginalized, especially those experiencing poverty. And that was what I did for the first 10 years of my ministry. Was the pastor actually of a new church start out of a nonprofit in Birmingham, Alabama. And then from there went to a historic downtown church that had really reimagined itself by being an open, inclusive place, especially to the LGBTQ plus community. And then when my wife started a PhD program in the Boston area, I kind of found my way up here. And so on one way of thinking of it, it's been pretty straightforward, but it's also very surprising too, because, 20 years ago, I never would have imagined that I would be in the Boston area. I never would have imagined that I would be at a UCC church that dates back to 1678. And I certainly never would have imagined that I would be part of this incredible consolidation experience. So even though my path in some ways has been straightforward, every part along the way has been surprising. And it's been such a gift because I've been able to experience so many different ways of being church, from a house church network that was a church start in Birmingham to a, more downtown kind of cathedral type sanctuary to now this. And kind of the one theme or one consistent thing I've seen throughout all of that is the call that I believe comes directly from God to always open the doors wider, that anybody who is left out, anybody who is made to feel that they're unlovable or unwelcome, that our job is to say, no, you are welcome just as you are. You are loved. You are accepted by God just as you are. And that's true whether you are a 12-year-old growing up in deep poverty in Birmingham, or a 22-year-old who has given up on church because you've been told your identity is sinful, or a historic congregation in New England who is looking for new life. I think that's the one constant that I've seen throughout my time in ministry.
That's a perfect segue to, in a different point in history, we would be here talking about my preaching for East Congregational Church and First Congregational Church in Milton, but God has done a new thing. And so if you both could maybe share a little bit about where are you finding hope in this consolidation and this coming together, and maybe share a little bit about the new name of this emerging congregation.
Well, I'll start this time. So absolutely, I think we both are finding hope, as well as our congregations, in this consolidation, where as of January 1st, 2025, the former First Congregational Church of Milton and the former East Congregational Church in Milton are now United Congregational Church in Milton, one church birthed out of two. And kind of the slogan that has kind of emerged, that originated actually with East Church, is better together. And part of the journey is that we started living into that reality even before we started having conversations about possibly consolidating. That we, 3 or 4 years ago, started doing a midweek Wednesday night dinner together called Nourish. Up here in New England, one of the surprising things to me, not being from this area, is how everybody scatters during the summer. And so we started doing summer worship together. We started doing some of our Holy Week services together. And none of these things were means to an end. None of these were like, done, okay, let's get the church ready to consolidate. these were things that were done because we truly could do them better together than either of us could have done on our own. And all of it went really well. And it turned out that we really liked each other too. And so that kind of, I think that history and that foundation really was a pretty solid place to begin the conversation when we were ready to formally start talking about the possibility of consolidating, because we already knew that we were better together, or at least that we had done some things better together than we could have on our own. But in terms of like finding hope, to me, it's a very specific image that I'm holding on to right now, which was this past Sunday in worship at our children's message. We were, for the theme of the worship, it was, Baptism of Jesus Sunday, and we were kind of leaning into that. And so our children's message, we decided we would let all the kids have like these pine branches that were lightly damp with water, and let them go around the entire sanctuary, like flicking water on people to remind us of our baptism. And so we had like 25 kids going around spraying water on people. And I just think, we are a relatively small congregation, and how hard it has been for not just our churches, but for churches everywhere to kind of bring back families with kids after the pandemic. And just to see the sanctuary with so much joy, with kids who were previously a part of both congregations and new families who have started coming, within the last few months, just kind of flinging water, the reminder of our baptism. It was just a very, very real, powerful moment for me of what hope looks like.
Oh, thank you so much. Shelley.
Oh my. Well, it feels like hope is blooming all over the place. Our congregation, the East Congregational Church, the one that I have served for 10 years leading up to this consolidation, even before we started our conversations with our neighbors, we spent a good 3 years in discernment over what future scenario path we wanted to go on. So it was arduous. One of the things we looked at very clearly was the possibility of legacy, and that there are many gifts in that path also. But there really was a sense that we felt like we weren't done yet, or that God wasn't done with us yet. And so, we decided to be bold and daring and say, okay, let's see if we can find someone who might share the excitement about the possibility of being better together. And because I've talked with a lot of colleagues, I know that you're not always able to find a partner either, even if you feel called to that. But we were, and the fact that our, sibling congregation was open to conversation with us was a huge gift and a huge sign of hope. And then also one of the early gatherings that we had of our consolidation team, which had representatives from each of our predecessor congregations there, we were doing our due diligence, and we focused on mission and vision to make sure that we had alignment, or to see if we did. And I think a number of us coming into that meeting thought, oh, this could be really hard. This is so important. And we laid out our existing vision, mission statements and talked about them and said, yeah. It was like one of the shortest conversations we had, because we're like, oh, are you kidding me? This is who we feel called to be. And it just, kind of phrases, words lined up. And we said, well, yeah, we see ourselves as an open Christian community, open to all, to belong, grow, and engage in acts of service and justice. And we're just like, okay, done, next. I mean, there was such hope in that, I think. And I also think that, one of the things we came into that with, I know we were like, well, what do we do about a name? If we, what if one of our congregations is really attached to our name? And as and it's like, so we had that conversation too. And then it was like, yeah, as long as it says Congregational and UCC somewhere in there, we're good. And we're like, so I think that there was just such hope in that openness, that spaciousness that we brought to the process. that really kind of propelled us forward. And I think that that is energy and hope that we feel now as we have to work on some of the nuts and bolts, but it's
Right.
also, we're just carrying that that tremendous hope for the future, and not just for each of our prior congregations or our new congregations, but for our community. We feel like now we have a more ability, more capacity to really bring hope to everyone who needs it.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you both very much. One of the monikers, many moons ago, I was the chair of the marketing committee for the national setting. And we briefly asked, could we change the name of the denomination? And I thought if we did, it should be the Uniting and United Church of Christ, because you all are models that we're continuing the work of the uniting. In some ways, it's not completely done. It may never be done as the kingdom of God continues to reimagine itself. I hope the uniting will continue. So thank you for being models with that. If people wanted to come and be a part of this service in this new year with us, how might they join us?
Well, we got all sorts of options. We love to see and welcome people in person. We also offer our worship through a Zoom meeting format, which is a little more participatory, so people can kind of talk before and after as well. We also live stream both to our website as well as Facebook and YouTube.
Perfect. Well, friends, you have been offered not only a vision for what we might do together throughout the Southern New England Conference, but if you'd like to peek in to worship, you can join us this Sunday, or I'm sure many, many other Sundays. Thank you both for contributing to a congregation that is an example of hope and light in the Southern New England Conference. And I hope our other congregations might be inspired by the work you two and your congregations that are now a congregation is doing together. Blessings to you both. Thank you.
Thank you.